Hello everybody, Cody here.
And Eric.
We are heading to get some lunch, so this has not been talked about. This is just dropping on Eric, we're going to talk about it. There are a lot of changes going on right now in the motorcycle industry as we speak, between Indian having new ownership, KTM struggling, Harley struggling, Norton possibly coming back to America, Kawasaki leading America in sales. I mean, there's all kinds of just random weird stuff going on right now in the industry. And I'm surprised about KTM. They were struggling before they got bought out, and they're still struggling. I'm excited for Norton to come back, though. That should be fun. Indian, I'm excited for the future of Indian. The new CEO talked about what his kind of plans were for the company there. I don't know if I agree with him not wanting to focus on smaller bikes. I think this is the problem with Harley Davidson as well. But he did mention a trike. So that means Indian is probably going to be bringing a trike to the market here, which I've been saying for years. Where is the trike at from Indian? That's competition to Harley there. And then he got Harley Davidson. And man, what a mess that is right now. So, how is it that Kawasaki is leading America in motorcycle sales?
Well, Kawasaki, arguably of the big four, is the largest. So, I actually think that they finally took a hard look at the U.S. market, is what I think. They always sold a few things here and there that sold big. If you go way back to like the Z1 when it was a 900, that was like huge and sold, like millions of them in the United States, right?
Right.
And then the KZ1000, and then you go on to the GPZs and everything, but it seems like that they lost that formula for a while, right? And lost the market. They were selling some stuff that arguably just wasn't all that attractive, and the small amount of motorcycles that they did sell were large muscle bikes, right?
Yeah, you think you go back to the late 90s through the mid 2000s, Kawasaki, Yamaha, Honda, Suzuki, they all had big cruisers. They all had big CC cruisers, not really touring bikes, but like cruisers. You had the
boulevard bike.
You had the Yamaha had the Roadstar 1600 and 1700 and the Warrior. Suzuki had the M90. Honda had what was that bike called? They had the Honda. Well, they had the Furry, which was the chopper. This is the last year for that bike, thank goodness, because that bike's a giant piece of crap.
The Fury is not a very attractive motorcycle,
is it? It's a turd of a bike. Sorry, Honda, but it's junk. It's cheap, it's junk. And then Kawasaki had the Vulcan, and they had the Vulcan 800, the Vulcan Drifter, the Vulcan 1500, which I had a 1500. It's a fantastic bike. Sold with almost 100,000 miles on it. And then they had the bid 2000cc version. So they rode the coattails on that for a while, but then people that bought those bikes, they kind of were fading out. And then there's a stretch where Kawasaki never really figured out what to do for the American market and what they wanted. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, they finally started capturing the younger generation with the little 300cc, 500cc. I mean, you walk in the Kawasaki dealerships, and they have a whole row of those. Well, I think they're 500cc little bikes, those Kawasaki bikes, and they're selling them like crazy.
Well, the mindset's changed a whole lot. Like whenever I was growing up, we were forced to ride age-appropriate motorcycles. So everybody that had to ride the little, like 550, like the Kawasaki, the KZs, the little 550s, or the KZTs, the little twins, or like the KZ 650s and the KZs. You know, you wanted something bigger, but that generation, you know, of that era, all of us are, you know, 50s now, and some in their 60s, and we still like all of the larger, more of a performance kind of motorcycle. And it seems like the new generation, it's weird. Everybody's into small, low horsepower stuff, and then it's like they buy something, like you said, the little 500s or the 300s, and then they all go crazy for performance parts to make them faster. To me, it's like, why are you spending all this money on a little bike? But
I think I know why the answer to that is, and this is also why I think Harley Davidson is struggling. So we can knock out two birds, one stone here. Price. Most of those people that are buying that motorcycle are people between the ages of 18 and probably mid to late 20s. They got a student loan debt, they got a mortgage, they probably got a new vehicle payment they're paying on. They don't have a lot of extra money, so they can't afford the higher CC bike. So they gotta buy what they can afford. And I don't know about everywhere else in the world, but I know in Oklahoma you can get your motorcycle license before you can get an actual car license, driver's license. So you're restricted to a smaller CC bike, which is another reason why. And Kawasaki, hats off to them for realizing this and catching on and producing a good, solid entry-level starting out motorcycle. And it looks good and people like it. And then I think they're fine. You know what? If I'm wrong on the CCs, I'm sorry. My sport bike knowledge isn't as good as my cruiser knowledge. Okay, I'm just gonna be honest with you out there. But that's it. They know that their market is younger. They can't afford an expensive bike. So instead of them having a cheaper bike, a more expensive bike, they make a cheaper bike that the younger kids can afford, and then get approved on. And so that's what they do. Harley Davidson doesn't have that. Harley Davidson is expensive, and you know, I'm already hear the people in the comments. Well, Harley Davidson's always been expensive. Listen, okay, I don't want to hear that shit. It's always been expensive, yes, but 30 years ago, the cost of living also was a whole lot cheaper. Maybe I want to turn that this way. It was a whole lot cheaper than it is now. And don't say, well, we made less money. Listen, you guys had pensions. Groceries weren't as much, mortgage wasn't as much. The average household income in America right now, monthly, before taxes, is around $5,000. The average mortgage in America right now is $2,500 a month. That leaves you $2,500 a month to have groceries, utilities, go out with friends. You probably already have a car payment. And that's just average across the board in America. The cheapest bike Harley has for a cruiser is the Sportster, and it's still like over $11,000. While you can go get a nice sport bike from Kawasaki for like $6,000 out the door. And Harley is not capturing that market at all. They're not listening to their customers. They're focusing on these big, heavy bikes. I walked in a Harley dealership to just look at the touring bikes. A road glide's like $31,000. I'm like, that's why? There's no reason a bike should cost that much money. That's not even the CVO. That's just the road glide special. I'm like, 31 grand for a bike is nuts. And not everybody wants a big touring bike in America. I don't know why Indian and Harley's so fixated on the big touring bikes. And I think that's their problem, is they're fixated on the big bikes and not focusing on the smaller bikes to get the younger generation in their doors. That's going to be the downfall of the companies if they don't get that straightened out quickly, I think.
Well, the Big Four's always catered to smaller motorcycles. That's their bread and butter worldwide. But they've always had motorcycles, starter bikes, whatever you want to call them. They've had them for forever. They've always been underpowered, and they've always been not very attractive. And whenever when you were 14, when I was 14, you were limited to 125. So they sold tons of 125s, and for a long time in the 70s and the 80s, the market was flooded with all these weird sized motorcycles. Let's just say that. There you had 100s and 125s and 175s, and you had 185s, and you had 200s, and you had 225s, and then you had 250s, and the price difference in all those wasn't very much. It was pretty negligible. But having said all that, there was always the entry-level stuff. I'm going to say that the mentality of performance, what people want, has changed. I'm going to say that that people's mindset has changed to where the muscle bikes, I think, are a little more intimidating to a lot of people, because we see it on YouTube all the time. Bikes that shouldn't exist, or bikes that should have never existed, or never buy these bikes. And then the same guys that talk about small underpowered motorcycles turn right around and talk about another small under horsepowered motorcycle. So price has always played something in the market, and the entry-level bikes has always played into that. And there was always motorcycles that you could buy. Here's what I think. I think that they finally taken the time to build some motorcycles that are small, and instead of being cookie cutter, plain Jane, no nothing motorcycles, I think that they finally started to put some nicer components and some styling into the smaller motorcycles. Yep. And that, along with pricing and along with rider skill, has sort of made that market finally grow after decades of just plateaued sales.
My buddy's daughter is 19 or 20 years old. She just got her first motorcycle. I think it's a 450, 500cc little sport bike. I don't know what brand it is, but she loves it. She rides that thing all over the place, and she's got her friends that ride together. She's got her little clique, you know. So I feel like you keep saying, the big four have learned to capture that generation, and that is where they're starting to strive. Listen, I'm a 37-year-old man pushing 38. There is nothing that Indian or Harley sells that appeals to me at all. And I'm just going to be honest with you. And I am the generation that has the money to go out and I can buy a new Harley. I mean, if I really wanted a new road glide, I could go get one. It's not a problem. But I don't want a bike like that. There's a reason I ride my Dyna. There's a reason I ride what I ride, because I feel like it has a soul. I feel like something's there. I don't like big bikes. We need a smaller bike that's got classic lines to it with a lot of power and reliability. That's for like between 10 and 12 grand. That's what we want. Something simple that performs decent and looks the classy lines. That's what my generation wants, the generation that you should be capturing right now. Then you need to make a bike that's in the smaller CC class that is priced between 4 to 6 grand for the super young generation, so you can capture that generation as well, because eventually they will outgrow them small bikes and want to go to a bigger bike and more power. But you got to capture this young generation, or you're not going to make it. That's just all there is to it.
I think they need to focus on too is they need to take all of the electronic gadgetry and shelve it, because motorcycles are becoming ever increasingly more difficult to service and to take care of, and their service intervals are becoming closer together. Mm-hmm. And the cost for those service intervals, because they're so labor intensive, also drives the service cost of a lot of motorcycles up also.
It does.
So I think we need to go back to basics on entry-level motorcycles and make it where they're a lot easier to service, not just on the dealership side, but on an individual at home on a DIY budget, in order to fix it and to service it and to maintain the motorcycle correctly. Because let's face it, how many of you guys have gone to look at some small used motorcycles, and they have just been beat to crap, and somebody's rigged at them to fix them to make them run, and they haven't been fixed properly. So by the time you buy this motorcycle and you fix it properly, you have invested, if not the same amount of money, but 2/3 the money, where if you'd have just went and bought a brand new one, right?
Yep. So anyways, we're just kind of just like random off-balling stuff here. I mean, but that's just, I'm seeing that, I'm just like, I can't believe Kawasaki's outselling Harley in American market. I mean, this is the Harley sales have been down the last 2 quarters, and it's not getting any better. And I'm just like, what's going on? I was thinking about that the other night. They don't have any good entry-level bikes priced right, and that's the problem.
You know, Harley Davidson didn't outsell the Big Four or any of the European stuff for decades, and the Big Four always outsold everybody. And then you had the little niche markets of the European market that would pretty much sell all that they could build. But you know, Harley Davidson had the better part of almost 20 years of just stagnant sales. From the first thing you're gonna say is AMF, but I'm gonna tell you something. It started before AMF. Now AMF was like salt in the wound and created a whole lot of issues and problems, and there's no denying that. But they had already had a downfall before AMF come on the scene, and then it took them until they could get rid of AMF and to change up their marketing. And once they did that, then Harley Davidson was back with a vengeance, right? But the problem is did they keep up with technology, and did they keep up with anything other than the bottom line? And that's all they kept up with.
Yeah, and it was that way until Indian came back, or Polaris, or whatever you Harley guys want to call them. It doesn't matter. They caused them to really change and design their bikes and put more technology. If you look at Harley's pre 2015, 2016, for about 25-30 years, they're basically the same bike. So again, nothing wrong with Harley. I like that stuff personally, but that's just me. So, oh no, I said we're just ranting and raving here. Not really ranting. We're just kind of like, if we can see it as a consumer, then why is a multi-million-dollar business that sells motorcycles, why can't they see it? That's kind of where we're coming from here.
We'll have lunch, and we'll do another one later at the shop, and I've got some ideas on all that.
All right. So until next time, hit like and subscribe so you can follow up with the next video, I guess. That's my so okay. And then y'all ride safe.